Hey everybody, welcome to the vlog. I'm not going to film my face this time. I'm sure you guys have seen enough of it. If you guys follow my channel, you probably know I have quite a record collection here. That's only the first half of it, more up here. Quite a lot. I'm slowly filling up this 4x4 IKEA shelf with records. All of this stuff on the bottom two panels here are, or bottom two shelves here, are my rock and pop collection. And for some reason, I like to set myself these lofty listening goals in my collection, and so I decided to go through my rock and pop collection in chronological order from 1955 on to now. Not like holding completely to the day-by-day chronological order, but I'm listening to all my albums from one year, then all my albums from the next year, then all my albums in the next year. But I've kind of organized them like within each year just to make sure I don't have like 5 or 6 albums I'm not that interested in a row, because when I've done listening challenges like this for myself, that was the problem. I'd lose interest when I got to a section I didn't like. So I set it up in a way that I know I'll enjoy. Anyway, yesterday I finished off all the albums from 1969, and I've moved on to my favorite decade, the 1970s, and today I'm going to show you my collection of rock and roll albums released in the year 1970 that I'm going to go through and listen to. I'm very excited for this year. I started this with 1955 about a year ago, and I've been slowly working my way through the collection. I remember when I was on tour back in May. It's now January. Back in May, I was up to 1963. I know that because I had to lug all my 1963-64 albums in my car on tour. Yes, I did bring a record player on tour with me, and no, I'm not sorry. Anyway, so I'm starting it. I started it with the lofty goal of listening to this bad boy. This is a 4-record set. Elvis's Worldwide 50 Gold Award Hits Volume 1. It's got 50 songs in it. They're all in mono. This is a mono box set, which a lot of people really like. A lot of people like to have the mono versions of these tracks. But then again, a lot of people prefer stereo. Let me know in the comments which you like. But yeah, definitely back in those days, there were real differences between the mono and stereo mixes, so it's nice to have both. I was thrilled when I saw this for a reasonable price in the record store. Get Your Yeah Yeahs Out, Rolling Stones in Concert. Great live album, for sure. Picked this one up a while back, and I've only listened to it once. I'm thrilled to dig it out again. Some people call this the album that gave birth to metal as we know it. The first Black Sabbath album from the early months of 1970, which was apparently recorded in one day in November of 1969. That's crazy. They just went into the studio and recorded that. I also have some singles here. This is John "Oh No" Lennon, and one of my favorite songs is Instant Karma, We All Shine On. I think the Beatles were broken up by this point, but they weren't officially broken up. But various members were releasing solo works back then. Oh, I just picked this up on tour in Alberta at a Value Village. The 1970 stoner anthem, One Toke Over the Line, by Brewer and Shipley. That's cool. Some Canadian rock. The Guess Who with American Woman. This copy is beat up, but still plays. What I think is hilarious about this is the previous owner has given him a mustache and him some kooky glasses, which is hilarious. Up the Ladder to the Roof, The Supremes. This was, I believe, the first single by the Supremes after Diana Ross left the group, and like a lot of their fans, I pretty much lose interest after that, but I do have that. It's important for history. Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water, my favorite album of theirs, a lot of people's favorite album of theirs. I believe it was their last album before they broke up, and of course they'd get back together a few times over the years, but this was the last album of their famous period. I don't think they released more albums in their various reunions. I know they put out a lot of live releases and stuff, but not a lot of studio albums after that. Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Tears of a Clown. This was, I believe, the only #1 hit that Smokey Robinson and the Miracles ever had. It was actually recorded in 1967, and I'm not sure what album it came out at first, but it was not a hit until it was reissued in 1970. The Who's Live at Leeds amazing live album. So this front cover, I think they were kind of making fun of a lot of the bootleg releases that were out at the time, which would be kind of cheaply stamped with the title. But of course, this is an official release, and it includes an almost 15-minute version of My Generation, which is awesome. My favorite singer of all time, Linda Ronstadt, and the only album she ever recorded in Nashville, Silk Purse. This is before producers really knew how to mix her voice. This is before she was the huge star she would become. This has the great song Long Long Time on it, which is one of my favorite songs she ever did. But this album doesn't really have my favorite version of that song. I always thought she did it better live. Not my favorite Linda Ronstadt album, but it's very early in her career, as her career was sort of blossoming. The first album after Crosby, Stills, and Nash added Neil Young for their sophomore release. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young's Deja Vu. So many hits on this one. Carry On, Teach Your Children, Helpless. Of course, Woodstock, the big hit off that record. Got a great gatefold as well. Excellent album. Oh yeah, this is from right when the Beatles had officially announced they'd broken up. Paul McCartney released his self-titled debut album here, although you wouldn't know it was really self-titled by the fact that there's no title at all on the cover, just a bowl and some grapes, and then a photo collage done by Linda McCartney for the gatefold. He annoyed the other Beatles by releasing this a few weeks ahead of Let It Be, which was an album that he famously did not like, the Phil Spector mixing of it. And here it is. This is not an original pressing. This is the new 2014, or 2012, is it? Yeah, 2012 stereo vinyl remaster from the box set that I have up here. Amazing album. The last Beatles album released, not the last Beatles album recorded, though. That honor goes to Abbey Road, which was actually released a year earlier. This came from some sessions from early 1969, which included the rooftop concert. The back cover calls it a New Phase Beatles album. Yeah, originally mixed by George Martin, but then, of course, Phil Spector went into the master tapes and remixed it for this release. Oh, I love this. I picked this up online recently. James Brown's hit single, the very wordy title of Get Up, I Feel Like Being a Sex Machine. Part 1, Part 2 on the B-side, as soul, R&B, funk singles often were back in those days. Another female singer I really like is Melanie. I was just talking about Linda Ronstadt earlier. Her and Melanie are two of my favorites, and this is an excellent album of hers. Melanie Safka, of course. This is the famous one, Candles in the Rain, which has the song Lay Down. Is my favorite song she ever did. I think it's an extremely powerful song that she wrote after performing at Woodstock the year before. She does a great version of James Taylor's Carolina in My Mind on this as well. And there's What Have We Done to My Song Ma, or What Have They Done to My Song Ma, and her cover of the Rolling Stones' Ruby Tuesday that was a big hit back then as well. Elton John's self-titled, I almost called it a debut album, but this is technically not his debut album. He released one album the year before in the UK, but as far as America was concerned, this was his debut. This was his first album to appear on American store shelves, and I just love this gatefold with the lyrics. It's so early 70s, hey? Of course, the big hit from this album, still one of his biggest hits ever, Your Song. It's also got Take Me to the Pilot on this one, and The Border Song, among others. Excellent album. I love The Fifth Dimension. This is Portraits. The big song off this album was One Less Bell to Answer. Diana Ross, post-Supremes single, Remember Me with How About You on the other side there. My favorite CCR album, and I really do love CCR, Cosmos Factory. This one is just loaded with hits. You know, it's got Travelin' Band, Looking Out My Back Door, Run Through the Jungle, Up Around the Bend, I Heard It Through the Grapevine, Who Will Stop the Rain? Pretty much every song on this album, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3, was a huge hit. CCR did a ridiculous amount of hits, or made a ridiculous amount of hits, rather, over a 2-year period between like 1968 and 70, where they released like 5 albums. It was insane. including 3 albums in '69 alone. Sly and the Family Stone's greatest hits. I always prefer actual studio albums from the greatest hits compilations. I love studio and live albums, but yeah, I don't super collect a lot of greatest hits compilations, but I had to pick this one up when I found it in a dollar bin. Lots of great songs on that one. Oh, I love this live album. I'm cheating a little bit. This album came out in 1971, but it was recorded in 1970. The double album, Four-Way Street. What I love about this is the first LP is all acoustic. Is their acoustic set, and then the second LP is their electric set. I always liked Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young when they kicked it up more and did the electric tunes. Santana, and I'm going to butcher the pronouncing of this name, Abraxas. I have no idea how to pronounce that, but it's got 2 of their biggest hits of all time, Black Magic Woman and Oye Como Va. This was their second album after their excellent 1969 debut. Great album. This is, I believe, pretty much the same lineup that did that first album. I have a couple of 4 tops. The reason I have so many Motown singles is I've bought a couple of wholesale lots off of eBay, which had like 40 or 50 Motown tunes on it. Anyway, I got It's All in the Game and Stillwater. Love Stillwater Peace. 2 of their songs from 1970. By 1970, the 4 tops were kind of on their way out, but they still put out some good songs that year. Led Zeppelin 3. What an excellent album. This is the newer reissue double album, which has the original album on the first LP, and some pretty darn cool outtakes and alternate mixes on the second LP. I actually have not gotten around to listening to that second LP, and I just love the, I don't know what the word is for this thing. Not a kaleidoscope, but a gyroscope. That's what it's called, I think. Not really a gyroscope at all, but it's like, still pretty cool how you can alter the front cover kind of by doing that. This is a low a budget line Elvis compilation, Almost in Love. The only reason I picked this one up is because it's got the song A Little Less Conversation, which was not a big hit at all until it was remixed in the 90s. Everyone remembers the remix of A Little Less Conversation, but it's a cool song. Again, I'm cheating. This is a live album that came out in 1971, but was recorded, as the cover suggests, November 17th, 1970. This is Elton John's famous trio of him, Nigel Olsson, and Dee Murray. Nigel Olsson, of course, is still in Elton John's band. Dee Murray has since passed away. If you're a fan of Canadian rock and roll like I am, you may recognize the song Bad Side of the Moon, which was eventually covered by April Wine in 1973. A lot of people don't realize their version is a cover. Yeah, that's the It's My Life, It's My Life. Yep, that's an Elton John song. A lot of people don't know that. Neil Young's After the Gold Rush. I go back and forth between this one and Harvest. I may like this album even more. It's so perfect. Oh, it's so good. It's got the gatefold here as well. Such a great picture. Oh, could listen to this album over and over. Really excited for that one. This is a weird thing I picked up. Only have volume 5 of this one, The Motown Story, which I believe was released in many countries, but this one, I'm not sure what exact country it comes from, but you'll notice it's on this white label Tamla Motown. Sorry, my shadows are getting all over the place. Manufactured in the West Indies. Not sure what country they mean exactly. Let me know in the comments. The West Indies isn't a country, is it? Was it at any point? I don't know. But yeah, not sure what exact country this comes from, but it was just kind of an obscure release. This one's got, it's a compilation album with like the Temptations, Marvin Gaye, Diana Ross, and yeah, a few other popular groups of that time period. George Harrison, All Things Must Pass is what's going to end this year for my collection, for what I'm going to listen to. The epic 3-album set. You'll notice that somebody, not me, I promise, had decided to use this album as a cup holder. or a very large, very expensive coaster. And not happy with whoever did that. But maybe I am happy with whoever did that, because it meant I got this Pretty cheap, nothing really on the back cover. I'm not even going to open this one because it's kind of falling apart. But the albums are in good shape, but the box itself is falling apart. This album was, of course, essentially a double album, but it's also got the third Apple Jam album, which had him and Eric Clapton and a few others jamming on that. And then I also have this Keep On Rockin' box set. It's a super budget line 45 song compilation, but it's got the original recording artist. It's over 4 LPs. It's not really from 1970. It was released in the 80s, but most of the songs on this album were released between like 1966 and 1970, and it's got a lot of songs on it that I don't have otherwise in my collection, which is why I picked this up. Not the crown jewel of my collection by any means, but a cool little old school compilation. And that'll do it for my collection from 1970 albums. I'm so excited to go through this year. I've really enjoyed this little listening challenge that is so far from over. I've got this many albums or more from pretty much every year in the 70s and through the first half of the 1980s before vinyl sort of started to fall out of favor. Thank you so much for watching this video. You can check out my description down there for a full list of my upcoming concert dates. I myself am a professional musician. Yeah, you can also find links to where you can find my music, where it's sold or streamed online. Like this video if you liked what you saw, subscribe to my channel if you've been enjoying my videos, and ring the notification bell if you'd like to be notified every single time I upload a new video, which should be tomorrow and most days for the foreseeable future. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you with another new vlog again tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed this. See you soon.